Estou passando nesse podcast para dividir uma informação que fez toda a diferença na minha vida. Quer fazer pós-graduação, mas tá impossível correr de um lugar pro outro?
Pois é, ainda mais com o trânsito.
Então você precisa conhecer a educação à distância do Senac. Sabia que é nota máxima no MEC? E tem diversos cursos de pós-graduação para te levar ainda mais longe. 100% online, sem necessidade de TCC e com acesso direto a todos os professores.
Ah, saber isso fez diferença sim.
Inscreva-se já na pós-graduação EAD. Quer saber? Senac EAD.
Welcome to the 5 o'clock show. It's time for Common Sense. Now, it's Katz and Cosby with John Katzimatidis and Rita Cosby, standing for truth, justice, and the American way, bringing common sense to the world. Now, here's John Katzimatidis and Rita Cosby.
Well. Joy to the world, the Lord is come. Let earth receive the King. Let earth
And welcome to Katz and Cosby.
It's not Christmas.
It isn't.
But it's Christmas in Chicago. It's Christmas in Chicago because everybody was tiptoeing through the tulips and singing joy.
Every word, John, was joy. She does this joy, this happiness. Ed Cox, I mean, you can't make it up. They didn't talk about policy at the DNC. They talked about joy.
They would like to talk about hope and change, but they're the incumbents, so they can't talk about change, so they adopt joy.
They picked that.
And Judge Weinberg, what do you feel?
I think that's the biggest joke in the world, saying that Kamala Harris is an agent of change. Where has she been for the last 3.5 years on foreign policy, the border, national security, and the economy? What agent of change is that?
Yeah, absolutely.
And we have a special guest in the studio.
We definitely do. We have a great esteemed guest with us, Consul General
He had such a
Ophir
good time
Acunas.
the first time. He came back again.
Do you blame him, John? Do you blame him? We're a good group. We're a great group. And we have Consul General Ophir Acunas. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you so much for having me again.
How are things in Israel?
Yeah. In Israel, I will tell you, we are not afraid from the Iranians. We are not afraid from the Hezbollah. So we are not afraid from their proxies, actually. Hezbollah and the Yemens, the Houthis and the Hamas, and we'll defeat them. First of all, we'll defeat Hamas. First of all. That's the very first thing that we need to do. We must do it. You know why? Because this is our duty to our people. They invaded to Israel. It was a vicious massacre. We are not forget it. We will never forget it. And we will do whatever it's necessary to defend our people. In Rafah, Khan Yunis, Jabalia, and Philadelphia, of course. Why do we need to be there?
I am so glad that the courage of the Israeli people
Absolutely.
is Iran.
Yeah.
They are the puppets. I mean, they are the puppet masters. They are pulling Hamas. They are pulling the Houthis. They are putting Hezbollah.
Yeah.
But nobody says anything about them.
No, I want to tell you. First of all, it's not new. We are familiar to the Iranian threat from even before 1979. Before the revolution, the Islamic revolution. Actually, as a Jew, I know the king Ahasuerus. He was the first Persian leader to declare, you can read it in the Bible, that he wants to destroy, to kill all the Jewish communities. By the way, from India to Kush, it's like from India to Africa and all around, because it was under his regime. And we are here, and he's not here.
I understand the Iranians are upset with the Israelis, but why did it hit a Greek boat with oil in it?
No, that
happened today.
Wow.
I want to tell you, there's a lot of good questions. First of all, I'm happy that there is an international coalition down there around Yemen. It's very important. I remember the first international coalition in 1991 against Saddam Hussein right after he invaded Kuwait, and I was 18 years old, and I walked to a neighborhood nearby my neighborhood. Then it was empty. Now there's a lot of buildings. We saw the American soldiers. We salute them, and actually they came with a Patriot, something like the Iron Dome. Yeah, actually to defend the state of Israel and to defend actually the Western world. And this is the point. There is one point. It's the axis of evil against the Western world. If you support the Western world, you must stand with Israel. And if you support the axis of evil, so you can stand with them. They will kill you.
Right, absolutely.
I just came back from the Greek islands, and
Good for you.
And
Beautiful place.
It's beautiful, and a lot of the people there are scared of war.
In the Greek islands.
In the Greek islands.
I will tell you why. I have an explanation. I think that the Iranian threat, as I said, is not a threat against Israel. Israel is the front frontier. They're using their proxies, the Hezbollah from the north, and Hamas from the south, and the Yemens from east. Okay, we know, and the militias that they actually armed in Iraq. Okay, so we know that. And now, not about Israel anymore. It's about Europe, and it's about United Kingdom, and it's about the United States. How do I know it? They are saying it. And I read a tweet from I think the organization of students in Colombia, that they are for boycott and they are against Israel, anti-Zionist, and they wrote in the tweet, we are against the Western world and the Western civilization.
Well, they're burning American flags too at the outside the DNC. I mean, when you see these people, it's heartbreaking.
This is a radio show, but I know that you are actually. They can see me now, or do only hear me?
They can hear you.
Next time you're here, we're going to set up the
that's
cameras.
right. So, who will describe to to your listeners what? It's on my
I love that.
jacket.
Yes, you have the lapel, right, with the two flags.
Right, American flag and the Israeli flag. And if you want to know the difference between the Israelis and between actually the people and the nation who support the American people versus the people that want to destroy United States, you just take a look at the terror supporters. These days in Chicago, 2 weeks ago, during the Prime Minister Netanyahu's speech on the Hill, and 1 month ago, right here in Manhattan. So this is the difference.
Absolutely.
We have Karl Rove, who was the assistant to President Bush.
Yeah, George W. Bush.
George W. Bush.
We just mentioned.
Yeah.
The George W. Bush, the father or the son?
The son.
The son. I mentioned the first Gulf War.
Well, he knows all the Bushes, and he's joining us now.
You're the Father, the Son, and he was the Holy Ghost.
We got it all covered.
Okay.
We have with us the Consul General of Israel in the studio.
Hi, Carl. And Carl, I know you're on the way at the airport, actually leaving the DNC, about to fly out. So we're thrilled that you're joining us. Carl, your reaction first off to some of the protests that we have seen, these horrible anti-Israel, anti-American, anti-West protests.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, first of all, I was surprised how small they were. All of this talk about tens of thousands of protesters. And second of all, how, this is one of many things that they hate America for is its support of Israel. But I have to admit, I enjoyed watching it on television the other night because they had a group of about several dozen of these protesters who were trying to confront the police, and they insisted upon marching, and the police basically cordoned them off, would keep them safe from when they passed intersections. They kept sort of negotiating with them, and then when they got to a particular place, you could tell that the protesters wanted to get ugly, and they started pushing and shoving the police. And at that moment, up around the corner appear several hundred additional police, and with that, the Chicago police surgically go in and grab each of the leaders of the group whom they've been talking with and negotiating with and identified over the previous hour and a half, and grabbed each one of them and put them in the pokey, and off they went, and the rest of the crowd just sort of dissipated. It was a joy to see.
It's not Chicago 68, is it, Carl?
No, it is not, Ed. It is just I tip my hat to the Chicago Police Department. They trained for this, they prepared it, and they were really thoughtful about it and really smart. Particularly, you could just tell as they went through this crowd, you knew that they were going for each one of the people that they'd identified as a leader of the group. And when they grabbed each one of them, many of them, made a scene And that was fine. They were very professional about pulling them out, but you could just see the life go out of this small group of several dozen protesters when they plucked out the 4 or 5 leaders of the group and took them to the paddy wagon.
Now, I understand that they did not allow the Israeli protesters, pro-Israel, to. They didn't give them a license to protest.
Well, I'm not certain they needed a license because they were standing on a synagogue property across the street from the route where the pro-Hamas demonstrators were going, and the police were well out. They had a big police presence there to protect the pro-Israel protesters. Do we have to call them protesters? Let's say that pro-Israel supporters.
Supporters, fine.
Yeah, but you could just tell, the police were prepared for that moment, and that's exactly why the Hamas group wanted to walk that way, was so that they could, hurl insults towards a synagogue. I mean, these people are sick. They one of the things that the local reporters were talking about in the Chicago News was how many of the protesters denied that there had been a massacre on October 7th. They denied that civilians had been killed, that women had been raped.
And Carl, I understand every night they've had at least one pro-Palestinian speaker.
My suspicion is that, you'd have to dig hard to get that. But yes, I would, there are people who clearly have been on that podium who I suspect in other circumstances have been saying things, anathema to the Israeli cause, but I didn't hear anything from the stages last night or the night before.
What did you make, Carl, of when President Biden on Monday night said, he brought it up on his own? Hey, the protesters out there, they have a point. A lot of people thought, it seemed very inappropriate.
I thought so too. And then his comment, I think the irony is lost on President Biden. But after attacking President Trump for having made a comment about Charlottesville in which there were good people on both sides, he then proceeded to say both sides have a point about the fight in Gaza. And I wrote my article today in the Wall Street Journal about it. I was thoroughly disappointed in President Biden's remarks. He could have gone out on a high note. It would have served his party well. More importantly, it would have served the country and him well. But instead of, saying I am grateful for the opportunity to have served my country, I've done my best, he said those things. But that was a brief moment in a long description of how he had been a great transformational president. And we all ought to be grateful for the things that he did, like giving us inflation and passing these laws that brought the big spending packages that brought it about. It was just amazing to me how tone deaf he was. It was, as I put in my piece, he was not speaking to the audience. He wasn't even speaking to the country. What he was speaking to was future historians to try and convince them that they ought to put him near the top of their rankings of effective presidents.
Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking.
Consul General, you had a question for Karl Rove?
No, I just want to say that I heard your report, Carl, and I'm very worried that there are still, I don't know how many, but Americans that actually believe the lies of Hamas. And you described the pro-terrorist organization protesters. That's what they are, and not pro-Palestinians. Don't say anymore. I'm talking about in general, not about you, of us, of course. There are pro-terror organization supporters who dare to deny the October 7 massacre. Yeah. And I want all of us actually to stand for the truth. We are doing it. I want that most of the Americans will do it. Just, stand for Israel, but stand for yourselves.
Also, Mr. Consul General, one of the things that really sickened me was they went even further, because there were protesters on camera. You see them. Yeah. They were asked and said, what do you think of October 7th? And they said, what's the problem with October 7th? That is shocking.
I saw. That's unbelievable. I think that all the brave Americans, and you are brave people. I admire the United States. You must be proud of yourselves and not be, to reflect the weak in the presence of evil. And if you, and I'm afraid that if our communities around the states will reflect the actually weakness in the presence of evil, then it will be bad not only to the Jewish communities or to the state of Israel, to United States of America.
Yeah, great thoughts.
You know what I've always said, Consul General? The free world is depending on the United States of America to keep the free world free.
There's a great expression that says all you need to have evil triumph is the absence of good to confront it.
Yeah, good men do nothing.
That's
you
right.
know?
When good men do nothing, when they don't speak up. Listen, there are people today who deny the Holocaust with the slaughter of 6 million Jews.
Yeah, it's shocking.
They didn't happen.
Who is
That
he,
didn't
by the
happen.
way? Who is he?
Oh, this is...
No, who is he who denied the Holocaust?
The
Abu
Iranians.
Mazen. No,
Yes,
the
and
Iranians,
others.
the Palestinians.
Of course, they
They
deny
call
it.
themselves neighbors. I'm always say that actually he's the leader of the PLO organization. He called himself the PA chair, Abu Mazen. He never condemned the October 7th massacre. Never condemned the October 7th massacre.
Which
This is
raises the
unbelievable.
question.
Raises so many questions.
If you want to argue for a two-state solution, who are you going to have as a negotiating partner in good faith?
Absolutely.
Who are they going to put in to run Gaza after?
Absolutely. By the way, Carl, before we let you go, Carl, I know you're at the airport. Real quick, your overall thoughts of what you think we're going to hear tonight from Kamala Harris, who's going to be speaking tonight, of course, and accepting the nomination for president on the Democratic side.
I think it's going to be light on policy, which is not necessarily a bad thing for her, because we don't know much about her. And the people who are tuning in tonight who don't know much about her are going to want to hear her life story, her values, her views, what shaped her life, what she thinks is important. Plenty of time for her to talk about policy later. But tonight, if she's smart, she'll put the focus on here's who I am as a person and how you can relate to me, and here's what I care about, and I hope you care about those same sorts of things. So we'll see. She can read off of teleprompter. Let's this is not going to be the ultimate test. She can read off a teleprompter and deliver a speech. It's when she gets into the debate and when she gets into free-flowing conversations with, and interviews with journalists that we're going to get a real test of who she is.
And Judge Weinberg.
Carl, I want to ask you this. Chuck Schumer's gone out there now, and he's talking about eliminating the filibuster. Can you explain to our listeners why that's such a dangerous phenomenon?
Historically, the Senate has required 60 votes to take up a measure. What this would mean is that they could get their entire agenda with 50 members of the Senate and a vice president who agrees that, yeah, we ought to admit the District of Columbia as a state. Yeah, we should have the federal government take over running local elections and abolish voter ID. Yes, we should pass a Medicare for all bill and kill private health insurance. All of these things that the liberals and the progressives and the left wing talk about, they could get it with 50 votes in the Senate and a vice president of their party sitting in the chair.
So they can totally remake the United States of America by a simple majority and a tiebreaker with the vice president.
That's correct. Revise the Supreme Court, add additional seats, do all the things that they've been talking about doing on the left for years. They could bludgeon their way through to it with 50 members of the Senate.
And Carl, that's why we have to hold a majority in the House of Representatives.
That's right, and that requires New York victories.
You bet.
Take the Senate and keep the House.
All right, Carl, thank you so much. I know you got a flight. We're so glad you're with us, Carl. Thank you so much. Safe travels, my friend. Thank you very much. And when we come back, John.
We got a break. We have to take a hard break. We'll be back in a few minutes. And will you still be with us?
Yes, you.
The consul?
Yeah.
Okay.
We got a lot of questions for you.
Okay, so I'll wait.
All right, let's take that break right now.
Okay.
A common sense recap of the day's biggest stories. It's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby. Cats and Cosby on 77 WABC.
And we are back here on Cats and Cosby, and we continue with the Consul General from Israel to New York, Ophir Akunis. And, Mr. Consul General, before we move on, I want to keep talking about these protests because so many people are worried with universities about to open up, schools about to start again. You brought up Columbia University. What's your message? At least a number of these presidents have been removed where I think they have been too soft on the protesters. Well, what are your thoughts and how concerning is that for you?
It's unbelievable that you're asking. Right now, there is a news alert from the Jerusalem Post in Israel, and I will quote, "Responsibility to ensure Jewish Israeli students are safe, says Ambassador Akunis. The discussion was promoted by a concerning rise in anti-Semitic incidents on campuses during the last academic year, with reports of rhetoric escalating into violence. That was today in my office. Actually, I came to the studio from this current meeting. I asked them to come, Jewish leaders from campuses, universities, and other organizations, actually, to speak and to think what we will do. We have a very various actually ways to deal with. And first of all, I want to declare here that we will not accept the situation that actually we saw last April and May on the campuses. First of all, I'm calling to the police to actually enforce the law. You know, there's law and order in the United States.
Well,
you can't use the freedom of speech to say that you want the October 7th, that you want another, I quote, another October 7th. And did you saw it? It's unbelievable.
It is unbelievable.
Yeah,
the Chancellor of Columbia finally resigned.
Okay, now.
And I know that, was it,
and Harvard.
They're going after Harvard. Who's
right.
our lawyer?
Yeah, so far four.
Okay.
Right. So far four of the major Ivy League university presidents have resigned.
My expectation from the deans and the head of the universities is to actually to put a red line in front of these pro-terrorist organizations and the pro-Hamas supporters. They can use the freedom of speech is very important. I'm a Democrat. I'm for the freedom of speech. I'm for human rights. I'm for peace. But when someone yelling and screaming all the time against you, and they are screaming, death to America, death to Israel, this is a red line.
Judge Weinberg.
The problem is that the administration at Columbia University did not discipline these kids. They should have been expelled. The problem is the district attorney of New York County, Alvin Bragg, did not prosecute these kids.
Drop the charges.
That's right. So the problem is there are no consequences. These kids have to be held to consequences for their lawless acts. This isn't protest. This is violence. They intimidated people. They barricaded themselves
threatening people don't feel safe.
They injured people. They destroyed property. They should be expelled. They should be prosecuted. That's how you stop this lawlessness.
Well, and you know the issue I have with especially at Columbia, because Columbia sort of spread like wildfire.
Yeah.
Because what happens is if you condone bad behavior or you don't condemn it, it spreads like wildfire. And a lot of people, there were students around the country that said, hey, look what Columbia is doing. We can do that too. Mm-hmm. So think had Columbia taken action and had a hard line immediately, maybe we wouldn't have seen it in these other schools. Ed Cox.
So, Mr. Counsel General, a serious question. A Hamas leader was killed on Iranian soil. And the Iranians say they have
heard
to
about
strike.
it in
They
the
have
news.
to strike,
Yeah.
and yet they haven't. Why is that?
They first of all, if they will strike, we will do whatever is necessary to defend our people. We have various actually ways to do it, and first of all, they are doing it every day.
You have that
They are
secret
using
weapon.
the Hezbollah. No, they're using the Hezbollah. They're using the Hezbollah. They're using the Houthis. They're using the Hamas. I don't think that it will be a smart idea if they will actually act from Iran directly to Israel. That's enough.
That's enough. Yeah, we got it. We got it.
Okay.
We got it. By the way, I want to ask you, we talked about your lapel. You've got another one on the other side of the pin for the hostages. Last night at the Democratic National Convention, I thought it was actually very powerful because the two parents of Hirsch Goldberg, correct, said, they were pleading. My father was a prisoner of war. Mm-hmm. So when I hear it, it's heartbreaking to me.
I agree.
And so I think about to see these parents pleading. What is the latest? What do we know? We know, sadly, unfortunately, they found 6 bodies of hostages, Israelis, the other day.
3 days ago. 2
Yes.
days ago. And by the way, they murdered by Hamas. That's the truth. We know it. Exactly like the 12 kids and teenagers in Majd al-Shams. It's a Druze village, right? It's very close, actually, to the border with Syria and Lebanon as well. And they killed by them. This is the truth. And about the hostages, yes, it's heartbreaking. I agree. And I'm very happy maybe we'll close in an optimistic atmosphere to see that there is a bipartisan actually support actually, and we must say together, all of us, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, let them go, and to put all the pressure on the Hamas. You don't need to put the pressure on the Israeli government, because we want actually that all of them will be in their homeland with their beloved families tomorrow. We want them. I voted for the first deal. You know, I served as a minister for 7 years, and I voted for the first deal in mid-November. I know it's heartbreaking to hear them, to see the families, and I met a lot of families. I hope that and I pray that until the Prime Minister will be here in the end of September to the General Assembly, he will not bring actually families with him, because it will not be necessary. And so you understand me. I want.
Let's pray.
And I
Let's
believe
pray.
and I pray, and we are doing it. The only problem is that Hamas refused time after time after time to the ideas of the American administration, the Qatarians, the Egyptians, and the government of Israel.
Well, let's pray that you're right, that they are all freed and they're safe. And we pray for Israel.
Thank you so much.
It's really a blessing to have you.
Thank you for
today.
having me. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye. Good night.
So
Now,
much.
are you having good dinner tonight?
My wife is actually, finally she's here with my daughter. My daughter's supposed to actually start her army service in December. And I'm very happy that they are both here. And maybe we'll find there's one very nice right here.
Yes.
Near the studio.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you so much for stopping
Thank you
by.
so
Thank
much.
you. We
You're
hope to
always
see you
welcome
soon.
to stop by.
Whenever you will invite
Thank
me.
you so much.
Thank you so much.
And
Thank you.
right now, Rita, you have the hot news, sponsored by
It's the
Goya.
top news of the day, sponsored by Goya. Here's Rita Cosby.
And here are some of the biggest headlines. Chicago's Democratic National Convention is going to finish tonight, as you heard here at the top of Katz and Cosby, with Vice President Kamala Harris officially accepting the Democratic nomination for president. The speech is going to wrap up the 4-day event. Thousands of anti-Israel, pro-Palestinian protesters, anti-American protesters have converged on Chicago, as we talked about during the convention, as we were just talking about with the esteemed Consul General. Also, former President Trump has arrived in Arizona ahead of a rally that he is going to hold there tomorrow. There's also an elevated sense of urgency at this hour as Arizona police are searching for a man who has threatened to kill the former president. There's an all-points bulletin, and they have that man's identification. And also tomorrow, RFK Jr. is expected to drop out of the race and endorse President Trump during an event also in Arizona. We will, of course, have the very latest on that. And those are the big headlines of the day, everybody.
You're commuting home with Katz and Cosby. Now, here's John Katzimatidis and Rita Cosby on 77 WABC.
And we are back here on Katz and Cosby. And joining us now here is Carrie Lake. Of course, John, we love Carrie, Arizona GOP Senate candidate who's there and fighting the border.
And there might be big news coming out of Arizona next day or so.
Yeah, huge news. In fact, exactly. Carrie, you're in like the center of it all now. I know President Trump is in Arizona, and also, as John's referring to, RFK Jr. Looks like he's going to be endorsing President Trump, and Trump has said he'd be thrilled if he gets that endorsement. First off, what are your thoughts about that before we get into the border and everything else?
Well, it's wonderful news. We welcome everybody into the America First movement. It's not called Republicans First. It's called America First. And Americans have woken up and realized that the only way out of the mess we're in, that the political elite and the swamp and many, bureaucrats in D.C. have caused, the only way out of that is with America First policy. So we welcome everybody into it. If you woke up to the nightmare of Washington, D.C. swamp and their terrible anti-American, America Last policies 20 years ago, we welcome you in. If you woke up 20 days ago or 20 minutes ago, that's the beauty of this movement. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. I'm looking forward to being there. You know, the name Kennedy is no longer synonymous with Democrat because the Democrat Party right now is truly a Marxist party. It's socialism. It's America last. I truly believe that if, you know, Robert Kennedy Jr.'s father or John F. Kennedy were alive today, they would be America First patriots. You know, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Can you even imagine that uttered by Kamala Harris, Ruben Gallego, my opponent, or Tim Walz? I can't. They're all about putting America last, and so we welcome RFK Jr., any Democrat, any independent over. Let's come together and unite as Americans and save this great nation.
You know, I was just watching just a few minutes ago, President Trump, who's there. He's in Nogales, which is a tough spot, as you know. And it was gut-wrenching because you could see all these families who lost loved ones due to migrant crime standing with them at that press conference. He has done, I think, such a great job spotlighting, obviously, the issue at the border, the crisis at the border. And then here tonight, juxtapose that, Carrie Lake. In a matter of hours, we're going to see the, quote, so-called border czar. What is she going to say? I mean, the record has been dismal. What, anywhere from 8 to 20 million have crossed our border under this administration.
You know, he's talking about migrant crime. I think of another crime that's committed on the people of America is the fentanyl deaths, 17,000 last year alone. Imagine that. This is the number one cause of death for young generation, 18 to 40, is fentanyl poisoning, and it's coming through the border. And Kamala Harris, the border czar, Ruben Gallego, who's voted every step of the way along with this open borders, pro-cartel plan, they've got blood on their hands. We're losing a generation of people, whether they're hit from a drunk driver who shouldn't be here, murdered by a crazy maniac who's here who should not be coming across the border, raped or killed, or if they end up being poisoned by fentanyl. It's all the cause of this open border, and President Trump had it secure. So it's heart-wrenching. Nogales is a town, by the way. It's right there on the border. We've got Nogales, Arizona, and its sister city is Nogales, Mexico. It's right there. They want to be open for legal business. A lot of legal traffic moves through, but they're horrified by what they're seeing with people pouring over from 170 different countries. They don't know who's coming in. I was down there a couple months ago, actually. We drew a massive crowd. Even though this is a very Democrat and the most conservative people are independents down there, they're all fed up. They're people who have families, little kids. They've got people that are pouring across the border who don't speak the language, and they're just petrified by what's happening with this wide open border.
I mean, they gotta be angry with all those people coming through that border. I mean, are they still coming through at the rate they were coming?
I think it's slowed a little bit. But we're still seeing people now flying in. They're being flown in by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. 16 million people. The summer heat will slow things down naturally, but 16 million people I heard today.
When you go to your local diner or when you go to your local restaurant, do people say we're angry? Because I know there are a lot of angry people around.
Absolutely. And everybody says that. You know who's most, pardon my French, pissed off about it? People who came here legally. People tell me this, though. They say, keep fighting. We want this border under control. I look at the polling, guys. I've got internal polling. That's the good stuff where we say give it to us straight. The vast majority of all Arizonans, Democrats, are sick of it. Hispanic Arizonans, which make up 25% of our state population, are fed up with what they're seeing. They're tired of their kids dying from fentanyl poisoning. Everybody in this state knows somebody or has a very personal relationship with somebody who's died from fentanyl poisoning. And to top it off, the border czar, Kamala Harris, they've lost track of 290 children who were trafficked across the coury.
290,000.
290. Did I misspeak? 290,000.
You missed by 289,000.
Okay. I meant 290,000 children have been lost
It's unbelievable.
These are God's children. God's children are not for sale. That comes from that great movie.
I know. I talk to Bob Unanaway from Goya Foods all the time, and he shouts that out. He is so angry, and he wants to,
Yeah, and they're not saying anything about it.
Real quickly, guys, 290,000 children gone, missing. And then we have more than 120,000 young people who are killed every year from this fentanyl. Can imagine the number of people who are being wiped off the planet. When do we say enough is enough? Now Kamala and my opponent are trying to act like they're going to fix it. They caused the problem. It's a weapon of mass destruction.
By the way, did you hear? John just said everyone's going to hear it, hopefully, in 74 days. By the way, Carrie, congrats on your primary win, on your big one.
Thank you.
Thank you
so much, and we'll catch up again real soon.
Thank you, Carrie.
Okay, let's go. I think we have Joe Concha on the line.
Absolutely.
You want to bring him in?
Yep, absolutely, John. Fox News contributor, media and politics columnist, and he also is the author of a big best-selling book, Progressively Worse, Why Today's Democrats Ain't Your Daddy's Donkeys. And you know what? I think we have a little music, actually, to bring you in, Joe.
The hills are alive with the sound of music.
We're playing that because that's sort of a
theme song for the DNC tonight.
Exactly.
All happy talk, happy songs, all nonsense.
Yeah, all nonsense.
Joe, what do you think?
Cats, I got some stats for you, okay?
Oh, wait, that rhymes.
Night
That's
3,
good.
DNC, 87 mentions of Donald Trump, 1 mention of inflation.
Larry called me and told me that, too.
Oh, really? Okay, I was just on with Larry. So,
we saw you in action.
We were watching.
We were watching, taking notes. Joe.
We were cheering you on, but you're right. It hits a great point, Joe, because it's like everything is Trump, 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 and where's the policy?
all foam and no beer, Rita. All hat, no cattle. This is the Festivus of conventions. Are you guys Seinfeld fans? Do you watch the show?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yep.
Okay. This is the airing of grievances, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. It's all about Trump as if he's the incumbent. They talk about, the pain you're feeling. Day one, if you elect us, we'll solve inflation. We'll solve wages going down. We'll solve the border being overrun. This is the biggest gaslighting exercise I have ever seen. And I think, guys, quite frankly, it's going to backfire big time because I don't see the balance happening here, Cats.
You know, the question is...
Who did I have a dollar bet with yesterday?
Oh, it was Rich Lowry. Is he going to do a dollar with Joe?
A dollar bet. I don't think she's going to show up for the debate. She can't handle it.
I was just about to say that. That's so funny. I was just about to remind you of that bet. What do you think about that?
Well, if you take Kamala Harris out of teleprompter, let's face it, guys, she is the Ron Burgundy of candidates, right? Whatever you put in the teleprompter, Kamala will read. If you take her out of it, and she actually, for 90 minutes, has to defend, price fixing, for example, or abolishing ICE, for example, or sanctuary cities, for example, she can't defend those policies in any coherent way. So she'll say, Donald Trump is a convicted felon, therefore I cannot be on stage with him. I'm with you. I'm 50-50 if she shows up at this point.
Ed Cox.
Joe, even on the teleprompter, it's about gauging, not gouging.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You couldn't figure that out, right?
Excellent point. Well, Katz, you actually, you've made your fortune, obviously, WABC, but also in running supermarket stores. 1% to 2%, right, is the profit margin for most supermarkets. So if you fix those prices, like what happens there? I don't know.
Joe, I'm going to give you a quick. You gave me. I'm going to give you. You gave me quick numbers. I'll give you quick numbers. Every Rite Aid store has closed up in New York City and in New York City area. CVS's are closing up. Walgreens is closing up 2,700 stores out of their 7,000 something. I mean, our sales are down. You know why? Customers don't want to say, can you unlock the toothpaste for me?
Right.
I mean, the sales have to be down. The old adage was it's 1.5% in shrinkage because people steal and things get lost. Well, now between shrinkage and security, it's 6%. So if you have a 2% if you make 2% margin and now you're losing 6%, what's the number come out to?
I would say trouble.
Comes out to close,
so I'm
doors.
I'm willing to do an audit when anybody wants to do an audit as well if they pay me back my losses.
You heard it there, Joe. You heard it.
It's unbelievable. And you watch this over at the DNC talking about joy. Joy. What joy is there in this country? 76%, poll came out today, 76% of the American people do not believe we are going in the right direction. Yet they portray themselves, I don't know what's going on here, guys, quite frankly, because, again, the country, in terms of inflation, wages, the border, 12 million people coming in, terrorists coming into the country, education scores at a 30-year low. This gaslighting is overwhelming, and the media continues to push it, but I think in the end, once that debate happens and Donald Trump exposes Kamala Harris, if she shows up, that's the ball game, guys, just like it was for Joe Biden on June 27th.
What about Joe Concha, also the media pushing to do an interview? I mean, she hasn't even done a sit-down interview. The only thing was her and Tim Waltz talking.
No, there was a big
tacos.
interview between her and Waltz.
And Waltz's dog was interviewed, too.
It was a terrific, in-depth, hard-hitting interview.
It was rough, not rough.
I've never seen anything so compelling in my entire life.
It was gripping. But, what is going on as we're sitting there? The media, Joe, I mean, here we are. We're members of the media. You're like, I want to throw a shoe, throw something at the TV set, because it's like, ask the hard questions. When are they going to put her? Because that may happen before or after the debate.
Other than Bill Clinton's speech, I put on Hogan's Heroes to watch. Other than that.
Well, good for you. You're the lucky one, John. You're the lucky one.
You'll see Liz Cheney at Mar-a-Lago poolside before you see Kamala Harris doing a press conference.
Oh my God!
That visual is really hard to get out of my head, but
that's great.
That
you know what I mean.
Before we let you, before we let you go, Joe.
Seriously,
you have a big event coming up. Tell us real quick. You got something in New Jersey.
Oh yeah, Little Point Books, Point Pleasant, New Jersey. It's going to be great for my new book, Progressively Worse. It's going to be awesome. Tomorrow night, 6 p.m., Point Pleasant. Show up. We have a keg apparently is going to show up as well. We're going to have some fun.
Oh, wow, that sounds like a good time. Maybe Liz Cheney will show up.
Oh, God, no. Please, God, no. Thank you, guys. I appreciate having me.
Joe Concha, enjoy the weekend. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Good luck tomorrow, too. Thank you very much. And we have Michael Goodwin, everybody, after the break.
It's a common sense recap of the big stories. It's Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC.
And we are back here on Katz and Cosby. Well, he is fresh back from the DNC. I guess we're going to watch the big speech tonight like all of us. Joining us now is Pulitzer Prize winning columnist Michael Goodwin. And Michael, boy, it's like thin on joy, hope, change, and it seems that's the focus, and thin on policies, thin on issues. And there's a lot to go after. I can't wait to see what is she going to say tonight.
Well, I suspect she will not break any new ground that would interrupt the joy. The joy that the media has spotlighted. Sometimes really it's hard to know, do the Democrats think of these things and the media echo them, or does the media think of these things and the Democrats say, hey, the media likes joy, let's go with joy? When you look at all the press people who said, oh, what a joyful campaign, joy, she's exuding joy, it suddenly now has been picked up by everybody, including the Obamas, right? I mean, it's a joyful moment. It's a great PR strategy if you can get away with it.
What did you make of sort of also on the flip side? They're saying the word joy on one side of their mouth, and then on the other side, they're saying convicted felon, he's the worst, he's the this, but we're the party of unity, we're the party of joy. I mean, it's like, I think it was Trump who said that his name had been mentioned. This was, yesterday, so it's gone up a lot after last night. It was like 300 times.
Yeah,
but, I mean, you can't make it up.
Right. 300 times for Donald Trump, and not once the border, other than, this idea that she's going to be tough on the border. no sense of responsibility for the predicaments that the nation is in. The economy, she's going to fix it on day one. Well, you're the vice president. Why do you wait? Why not do it now? The border, same thing. The world, same thing. I mean, she's not just running from her record, she's ignoring it. And, of course, the media is letting her do it. So these are the challenges that the Republicans have. Look, I think overall both parties have had very good conventions in the sense that they are drawing together and uniting their parties. But the conventions, even in this crazy year, are serving the same function they generally do, which is, okay, now you've united the party. Now you have to appeal to the independents, to the swing voters. And both parties have that same challenge. And so one of the ways each of them will do is attack the other's claims at their conventions. And I have to say that I think, having been to both, the Republicans have a lot more fat targets to shoot at than the Democrats do. I mean, the Republicans, it's really about Trump. I mean, the Democrats can argue about abortion. I mean, they've concocted this whole 2025 issue, which is really a lie. Trump clearly disavowed it. He's clearly said he will not sign a national abortion ban. So he's been pretty successful, I think, at laying down markers that even the fact checkers are acknowledging that he has said these things.
But they keep saying it. Like I keep hearing January 6th, Charlottesville, Project 2025, convicted felon. I mean, you hear it over and over again.
And that's because of the media. That's because the media does not call the Democrats out on these lies. You're right. You add Charlottesville to that list. I mean, there's no question that they have distorted that. They have distorted everything to get Trump, to make Trump look bad. And if there were a responsible, fair media in America, then those things would be taken off the board, at least in public, right? Privately, they could whisper them, but they'd be taken off the board public. And we would have a real argument, a real debate about what's good for this country going forward, what policies. But instead, the Democrats want to run on personality. They want to run on Donald Trump's personality because they think that's a strength for them. And they don't want to talk about their own weaknesses. They don't want to talk about their own record. So, look, ultimately, elections are all about who gets to define the terms. Who gets to set the agenda as to what the public cares about? I happen to think that Trump is right on the issues, but they have a lot of targets, Democrats do, on his personality, on his language, and I think that's what it's going to come down to. Who can make the stronger case that the other guy is the problem?
Yeah, Ed Cox.
Michael, what did you think of President Clinton's speech? It was sort of out of sync with the really tough kind of criticism. It was more subtle, a little bit more quiet. What did you think of it?
Ed, I thought he had an idea, right? He had an idea of what he wanted to be and what he wanted to convey, which is kind of the elder statesman, and that he has seen a lot in the Oval Office. And so, therefore, he knows he knows a clunker when he sees one, or he knows a fraud when he sees one. I don't think it was very persuasive. I thought it was, in the end, a fairly thin idea with thin evidence and thin conviction. I'm not sure he himself believed that he was going to add something to the debate. It was more like an honorarium for him. I didn't think it was terribly effective.
Judge Weinberg.
Michael, let me ask you this. The Obama speech, what did you make of their speech? bringing back hope and change? What about their dismal record in terms of what they did to this country in terms of dividing it and emboldening and financing Iran? And Iran is on the cusp of getting nuclear weapons. It's as if they've abolished history. They've whitewashed history. Hope and change? I was hoping for a change away from those kinds of bad policies.
That's a good line.
I think we all were, Richard. You know, one of the things that struck me about both of them was a lack of self-awareness, or at least they were not acknowledging sort of elephants in the room. For example, Michelle Obama is giving this moral lecture about greed and people who have too much. My God, wouldn't she make $30 million on her book? They own these 3 amazing mansions.
How about J.B. Pritzker? J.B. Pritzker. I mean,
well, he at least acknowledged.
The Hyatt
he
firm.
Said, I'm an actual billionaire.
Yeah, versus
now,
the
if a
other,
Republican
right?
said that would be an advertisement, right? So the hypocrisy of what Michelle Obama said, notwithstanding the fact that she was very good, very entertaining, very energetic, she looked terrific, and I thought it was, for the crowd, effective. But again, there are big holes in the argument, and it's going to be up to the Republicans. Now, on Barack Obama, he was true to form, but again, the lack of awareness, of self-awareness. So he is talking about, at one point, we have to work together. We have to respect each other. We can't hate each other. And then he says, Republicans want to poison your children with their dirty water and dirty. Which is it? I mean, that is precisely, this is the guy of the clingers, right? That the people in Pennsylvania who didn't vote for him, they cling to their God and their guns. So this to me is the fundamental issue of the Democratic Party. They have no respect and no understanding of the Republican voters. They hate Donald Trump, MAGA, 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 Donald Trump this, Donald Trump that. But they have no understanding why these people are not with them.
Right. It's like either you're with us or you're not. You're right. I agree.
Well, you're an enemy. Charles Krailhammer said something years ago, which always stuck with me.
I love Charles. Charles and I were friends. We worked together. We worked together at Fox for many years.
Yeah. He said, Republicans think Democrats are wrong. Democrats think Republicans are evil. And that really, I think we saw that at this convention, that the Democrats think Republicans are evil. And that is an insurmountable gulf that just separates the parties. And I think it is a prime reason why this country is so divided. There's no bridge.
Yeah, you're right.
To go across.
So, Michael, the fourth denizen on the White House on the stage there, Hillary. What do you think of her speech?
Excellent speech for her, and much better than she normally does. She really had the audience. I think she hit a lot of the right notes. But for me, the most sour moment and the kind of the disqualifying moment is when she's railing about Trump and people start chanting, lock him up, and she smiles and nods.
Yeah, she smiled. She smiled.
And nods.
Yeah.
Nods approval. Disgraceful.
One of the things, too, by the way, tonight, we're also going to hear from Elizabeth Warren. I noticed it's like every night there's like one of these, there was Bernie Sanders one night, AOC, right. Elizabeth Warren. Well, we'll see. Thank you so much, Michael. We love having you here. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
My pleasure. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Well, what do we all stand for, guys?
Truth, justice, and the American way.
God bless America.